Toledo, Bridges, with your host, Donnie Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hey, good Sunday morning and welcome to Bridges. My name is Donnie and I'm so glad to have you with us. You know, I was in a conversation a few weeks ago with some folks and we were talking about the state of the economy and how it seems that the middle class is coming under more and more strife, and that those in poverty seem to be somehow stuck in poverty. It was a really interesting conversation. Some of the perceptions that arose from that group were things like, you know, poor people like to be poor. There's lots of opportunity in this town and in this community and in this country for people to not be poor if that's what they choose. We are talking about that this morning with folks who know exactly what it's like to be poor out there, and even have some opportunities and some things that they'd like to share with you about how that status might be changed. I'd like to introduce them to you this morning. We have with us Stephen McDonald, who's the coordinator of the Bridges Out of Poverty program. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We have Crystal Harris Darnell, who's the Executive Director of Youth Opportunities for the YMCA/JCC. Thank you, Crystal, for joining us. And if you've been with us for a while over these years, you'll remember Dolores Williams. Dolores has been with us before. She's the Manager of Residential Services at LMHA. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
So, what do you think? Do poor people like being poor?
Well, first of all, and I guess I'll start off the conversation and just being involved in working with families from poverty. And a part of my program, we work with families, they're 70% of the poverty level. And I have met, just dealing with teens. And so right now we're working with their teens. But I also started working with their parents. And I'm here to tell you that no one wants to be poor. I know some of the hardest working people in Toledo. When we're looking at our parents that are raising their kids, and for whatever reason, where they come from single parent homes, or sometimes they come from two family parent homes, but at the same time, they're working as hard as when we look at working two jobs, minimum wage. And so when we talk about our working poor, no one wants to have two paychecks and then they're balancing out those two paychecks. Do they pay rent or do they buy food? Do they get the car fixed? And so, again, when we talk about some of the myths and some of the misconceptions, the stereotypes and the judgments that come with the labels that they put on poor people, it's unfair and it's an injustice when we're talking about dealing with this issue around poverty.
Okay, and I hear all of that. And then there are people out there who will say, but yes, there have been massive affirmative action efforts that are designed to serve not only folks of color, but women as well. There are lots of scholarships to colleges. There are all these special programs out there designed to focus on those issues that keep kids from being ready to go to school or to succeed in school. We're spending billions of dollars a year on this issue of poverty, and it's not getting any better. So it must be the people, right?
No, absolutely not.
Not absolutely not?
Here's my perspective, and I've been at it with this population my entire career. And I don't know who the group of people are that you were talking with, and would
They're not
love
good
to have
friends,
been.
so I
Okay.
will tell you that.
Good to hear. I think that if we looked at the entire picture, you'd find out that there are working professionals making a decent living at a minimum, at a middle class level, who came out of poverty, and some of them were benefits of those programs that you just listed. I think there are a couple things we need to look at if you're serious about getting a good understanding of poverty. One, I believe it's going to always be here. I think it is incumbent upon the larger society to make sure that population is taken care of, that their needs are met, and that there are opportunities for those that are working hard to come out of poverty. That's one. The other is designing programs is great, and I've been a part of that most of my career, and it's a good thing, and it helps. But you want to make sure you are matching the right intervention to the right individual.
So just developing a program in and of itself isn't enough.
It's absolutely not. You really need to know the population. You need to know them in general, and then you need to know individually. So are we talking situational poverty? Are we talking generational poverty? the way you intervene is going to be different depending on how you assess that individual. But to answer your first question, I don't know anyone that likes the struggle of being poor.
Go ahead, sure,
Can I
go
answer
right
that
ahead.
question too? Even for folks, and Crystal talked about people that are working 1 or 2 full-time jobs,
3. sometimes.
working hard to make ends meet and not making it still. But there are also people who are not working, who are poor, and who work really hard. It is really hard to survive.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of work to survive in poverty.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things you talked about, the opinions that people have. People have all sorts of opinions. One of the things that we train in Bridges Out of Poverty is that we provide the language and understanding so that people from all different backgrounds have a common language and a common understanding for what's going on in each other's lives so they can work together to make a difference. And when you were talking about some of the programs and matching the intervention to make sure that it's appropriate, that's really critical. And one of the things that we teach constantly is you've got to have members of all classes around the table in order to create situations and solutions that work. So frequently, people in poverty are not at the table when the programs are being designed. And if they're not there, I've seen a lot of programs that don't work for folks.
Well, let's take a look at some of the perceptions, and I want each of you to respond to that, to the perceptions. We're going to put them on the screen. Brian's going to do that for us. Okay, so maybe people don't like being poor, but maybe the word is that they have gotten comfortable being poor. Yes or no?
I would say, there are some, when we talk about poverty, and we have to understand that what I've learned, because my background, I'm, grew up in poverty part of my life. And so it does become a conditioning process where it's about survival. And so therefore, when you're so connected and hooked into just surviving for so long, it's sometimes very difficult to kind of move out of that space. So it's not just about a physical space of being in poverty, but it's also a mental conditioning. And so again, when we talk about poor people, we have to talk about, and it's so much bigger than just the individual.
Absolutely.
We have to talk about environment.
Absolutely.
We have to talk about education. We have to talk about what job opportunities are available and what do they see in their communities. And so all of these pieces of the pie fit together when we look at it, how we're going to address poverty.
Okay,
Can I just
okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, behaviorally, we're talking about habits. And habits can be formed and habits can be broken.
Okay, but this
You've
is
got a pattern
exactly the conversation that those folks were having. It's choice. Habits are choice.
Donnie?
If you live in poverty, you don't have the choice of not struggling to get up and out in the morning. You have to struggle. And if that has been your life, all of your life, that's what you do. And so I'm comfortable. There's some habits I should probably change, but I'm comfortable. And when I change those, I have to step into discomfort. So you're stating a behavioral theory, and it applies for those in wealth as well as it applies for those in poverty.
One of the things we have to do to solve the problem of poverty is to eliminate the stereotypes against
Absolutely.
any group.
That's the first thing.
Right? So
Yes.
that's one of the things you have to come in right away and break the stereotypes. And from Bridges Out of Poverty, one of the best ways I've found to break the stereotypes is to look at the research on what actually causes poverty. And the research on what causes poverty can be divided into 4 areas. The first is individual. There are individual choices and decisions and habits and occurrences
Belief systems.
that can cause poverty. So teenage pregnancy, that contributes to poverty.
Absolutely.
Drug addiction contributes to poverty. Choices around behaviors and what are you going to do
But
with your
isn't
life?
that the argument that folks
That
make,
is.
that those are all about choices, whether
That's
they
why
are
you need to look
whether
at-
they are, you know, behavioral attributes to a particular person, or whether they are caused by
Folks that-
society. At the end of the day, it's all about choices,
Folks that are making
right?
It's not just
folks that
about
are-
choice.
Folks that
Not
are
just
making
about
that
choice.
argument are focusing just on they've got a bias
one
that
narrow-
individuals cause poverty.
Okay, let's
Right.
take a look at the next. We're almost halfway through the show, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the next one. The more children you have, the more federal assistance you get. So let's have lots of children so we can get more federal assistance. Crystal is appalled.
You know, and this has been a misconception for so long, where we have women out just having babies in order to get more assistance so they don't have to work. And I find this, again, just, now, could it be happening? I'm sure somewhere in the world that may apply to some, but when we apply it to a whole population of people, and again, and so that continues to feed the misconceptions when we look at poverty. Again, some of the moms that I work with that have children, again, they're not having children in order to get a welfare check or get more food stamps at the end of the month. I find that, you know, just ridiculous. But
ridiculous.
again, for me, it is based on just my own experience.
But if you can't afford your kids, why would you continue to have kids? Now, let me say this, because these are not my opinions, so please don't write me letters. Please don't, call me names. I'm really just being the devil's advocate here. This is really what we hear when we're out and about. And I'm going to leave that question on the table. We have to go away for just a second, but we'll start there when we come back, okay? We'll be back in just a second.